today we have three speakers who will be talking to us about Gen Z and higher education. We have Kat Cox, Brian Stevens, and Jada Walker here with us. So Kat Cox is yes, Brian, you may share. Kat Cox is a UT alum and a first-year master's student in the College of Education, Health, and Human Sciences, working on her MS in Educational Administration with a concentration in Higher Education Administration. As a fully online master's student, she has a mission to create a more meaningful community amongst the distance education student population and promote areas of opportunity for students with disabilities, both online and on campus. During her time at UTK as a full-time staff member, Kat has focused on accessibility and transparency within higher education, which is why she's involved with the UT Promise Mentorship Program, the Future Program, as well as the newly created Staff Senate. So we thank you, Kat, for being here. Brian Stevens is a distinguished lecturer in business analytics and statistics and the faculty director for technology enhanced education here at UTK. He's passionate about making learning both fun and accessible by aligning teaching strategies with how newer generations engage with content. Brian integrates social media, gamification, and data-driven storytelling to connect with Gen Z learners in meaningful and memorable ways. His work bridges education and innovation, helping students thrive in a rapidly evolving digital world. Thank you, Brian, for being here. And Jada Walker is a proud University of Tennessee alum and a 2025 torchbearer, graduating with her Bachelor of Science in Recreation and Sport Management, and minors in Business Administration and Spanish. She's currently a master's student in adult and higher education with a concentration in intercollegiate athletics administration at the University of Oklahoma. So she's joining us from there. While at UT, Jada was heavily involved in Greek life, the Division of Student Success, Enrollment Management, Athletics, and more. Beyond graduation, she remains committed to leaving UT better than she found it, beginning with championing student voices and fostering purpose-driven learning. Passionate about innovation, inclusion, and impact, Jada brings a Gen Z perspective to reimagining higher education through care, community, and emerging technology. So Kat, Brian, and Jada, we are very glad to have you here. Thank you all so much for being here, and we will let you take it away. And Brian, you are on mute.
I usually mute myself the other ways. Anyways, let me say what I was saying. Thank you so much for having us. I am here mainly as a just kind of a mediator and a bridge between generations to kind of hear from Kat and Jada and listen to Gen Z, which is something I think is very important to us as educators to make sure we're educating the students with what works best for them. And there's some interactive polls throughout this, so take part. First, before we get to the big parts and hand it over to Jada and Kat, when you think about what Gen Z is and who they are students born between 1997 to 2012, and there's a lot of stereotypes around them. I think that's where we run into some of these misconceptions and issues. You know, they think they're social media obsessed, on their cell phone, being outcome driven, and being socially progressive. So there's some stereotypes we generally have, but I want to hand this over to Kat and Jada. What are some stereotypes you've heard about Gen Z that you think are maybe true or harmful? Your thoughts on this?
I'll go first. So as someone Gen Z, but I like to say I'm on the cusp because I'm a 99 baby. We had to grow up with technology. We weren't given the option. So I did grow up with the 3 cable audio in the big square TVs. And I grew up with VHS that I had to rewind. But I was also there front and center when iPhones and iPods started. So I have been growing at the same time that technology has been growing. So that has been a facet of my life for as long as I can remember. And I'm very grateful for the foundations I had and some of the pre-technology practices. But I do think that in this day and age, technology is not an option anymore like it used to be. And so this notion that our students are technology obsessed or they can't get away from their phones, my biggest philosophical question is, do we really give them the opportunity to?
Yeah, I think
I think, oh, sorry, I didn't mean to speak over. I think Kat is bringing up a very good point. I've done testing with technology since inception of HTML1, and everything that I have seen when I've worked with it, whether it be developing online, doing DVDs, or doing actual interactive gaming type stuff, it depends on the interest of the student. And I still get what I mean, and I did this in 93 through 96 on early technology, 2018, looking at online gaming for teaching. And I still got the same percentage of a 30 output. 30% absolutely are just, can't wait to touch it. 30% are like, oh, okay, I'll do it if I got to. And I got 30% who still say, well, I'd rather not. So, Kat, thank you for bringing that up because a lot of times that falls on deaf ears. And I've been saying this for 10 to 15 years, and everybody goes, oh, Deb, that's not right. So, thank you.
Well, look at us, the generations working together already. I do want to preface and say that this panel / open discussion, me, Brian, and Jada are here to facilitate and kind of move through the slides and talk about this great survey that we sent out to students and got over 1,500 responses. I want to say in about a month and a half. So I'm very impressed with us. I'm not gonna sugarcoat that. But this is an open discussion. So if you have years of experience or if you have, I don't know, insight to what students are interested in or what you've struggled with, this is the time to do so because we want to hear what's working and what's not working. And I think Jada and I will be here to provide some pretty great insight to what we think Gen Z wants to see and has seen before and doesn't feel like it works.
Yeah, I definitely agree with everything Kat was saying. I do feel like I was born in 2003, so I don't really, I guess that's like kind of in the middle, kind of at the beginning. But I feel like the common misconception that I hear is that like we're lazy or entitled. And I feel like that's not necessarily true. I just think the reality of it is that a lot of people in Gen Z value like a work-life balance, mental health, and like meaningful work. Whereas like in previous generations, that may not have been a prominent like idea. So I just feel like that that can be misunderstood as laziness, but it's more about prioritizing like personal well-being and like ethical alignment with like their employers and professors.
I'm one of the oldest millennials. I'm born in the early 80s, and I totally hear what you're saying because I hear a lot more Gen Z in touch with their feelings and being psychologically well than my generation, where I heard a lot of like men don't cry, you don't show your emotions, don't do this, don't do that, don't talk about it. There's still those stigmas, but hearing Gen Z is more attuned with this, it gives me hope, I hope. So, and please everyone share their thoughts. And thank you, Jada and both Kat, for this is our opportunity to hear the differences and the misconceptions. Oh, hey. So this goes on to the survey, and we got some great comments in the chat right here. Anyone can join on the mic and definitely reading the chat as it goes. Thank you, Jamie and Robert, right there. So during the fall of 2025 here, we conducted a rather large survey. So we got a ton of responses and a lot of Gen Z, and we were able to look at some differences between the generations. I do want to note that one of the slides I'll point out talks about the differences in how they perceive the accessibility of education. But with that, I do wonder if it's maybe age differences, like if we had encapsulated how millennials felt when they entered college, because now a millennial would be someone towards their 30s or 40s. So there are some differences here, but the differences are pretty pronounced in a lot of ways. And we'll go to the first one right here. And this kind of hits upon, does the university understand the daily struggles of my generation? This kind of leads us to another conversation point right here. And from the statistical aspect, I notice a lot of neutral, which I don't like. I notice a lot of somewhat disagree. The big peak around here is in somewhat agree, but Jada and Kat, from your maybe, what do you feel the university understands or doesn't understand? Where's this disconnect between us and students?
So I, on top of being a full-time graduate student, I'm also a full-time staff member at UT. Woo, I just love it so much. But I will say that there are some pretty archaic systems in place as far as higher education. And it's going to take younger staff members like myself who are passionate about academia and are passionate about student experiences to make those changes, and to be the change that they want to see. I know that's kind of a corny saying, but I feel like the students in my program and the graduate students that I've been so lucky to connect with, are going to be the change that need to happen for future generations in education as needs change, and as education changes as well. So I really believe that this may reflect where we're currently at and reflect a dated system, but I think moving forward, I have a lot of hope for what higher education will look like.
Yeah, I agree with Kat in terms of a lot of the systems just being a little bit outdated. I do feel like I can see where a lot of, I guess, people responded neutral because I do feel like as it relates to mental health, they are working on bridging that gap constantly. Um, but I feel like one area is financial pressures is underestimated. Um, I think sometimes some people still assume that the college experience is where students are fully supported by parents or like things like that, when a lot of students are really having like part-time jobs, food insecurity, or like financial stress that maybe school isn't their main priority. So I feel like that is a gap that can kind of probably be bridged, and it doesn't help that like college is a business, so they are wanting to get more money out of students.
Jada, you really hit upon something there. The financial issues students have when we look at their stressors coming up here,
Mhm.
finances and work and things like that. There's other ones we'll see too, but what ways do you think the university could? And I think the biggest thing is Jada mentioned it. I mean, sorry, Kat mentioned it that having people who maybe have gone through these struggles is the best way to us as a university deal with these struggles. Um, what do you think we could do as a university or as educators to help students who are in financial struggles or really having a hard time?
I think right now the university, the QEP is focusing on career readiness. So students get their degrees, and whether they're getting something, whether they're passionate about or they think there's going to be a workforce, long term in that topic, they need to understand what the workforce looks like, and not just in the College of Business or in engineering, because I know they do such a great job, but tackling interviews and tackling resumes and money management. And I know that it's kind of an uphill battle, especially with housing, and the cost of living these days. But I think that there's maybe an assumed understanding of the adult world that college students are just supposed to innately have when they leave college or when they leave with their degree. And that wasn't true for me. And I don't think it's true for a lot of students, especially if they don't have the support of their family, or really anybody around them that can help them bridge those gaps of information.
And I want to give a huge shout out to Amber Williams' team. I actually met with Patrick from the team earlier today, got some coffee. The university, just for, I wish more students could hear this, is doing a lot of steps to do these push polls to make sure students, they started it during COVID with just click a face, how do you feel? And apparently students loved it. Like, I'll click the sad face. And, maybe it just feels better to not write you feel bad, but just be able to put the emoji out there to say, this is how I feel. But a lot of great work, and I want students to know we're listening, and I'm so glad Jada and Kat are here to share because that's how we listen. Well, on to the next motivation. So this is your chance right now. Just pull out your phone. Please tell us if it doesn't scan. I've got the slide, or I've got the Microsoft Forms pulled up so we can take a look at the results. But let's talk right here with Jada and Kat while we get this poll sent out to everybody. Do you think Gen Z picks their major based off personal interests or workforce interests? Your thoughts?
Ooh. Um, I feel like it's in between, but now I feel like it's based on workforce stability. I didn't necessarily do that, so that's why I'm like, well, I'm trying to think of other people, not just myself. I picked my major based off personal interests, and I realized that like it's going to take more work, I guess, to get to where I want to be in the field. Like I can't just start in sports and then have a job that's making like whatever amount I want. I'm going to have to work my way up. Whereas like maybe if I would have done like supply chain, I would know that coming out of college, I would have like a pretty decent pay. But I think a lot of people do, or a lot of students pick on like workforce stability. But now like the job market isn't the best. So I think wherever you go, it's a little iffy.
I voted. I did my vote. I chose workforce stability for majority of Gen Z. I do hope, as someone who came from the College of Arts and Sciences and currently works there, I hope that people are pursuing their passions, and are trying to make that their life, because we need the arts and we need liberal studies. And that's what I chose. I chose my love of English. And I think you can come out of college with a degree that says what you have on the degree and you'll get that job. But I think some of the more creative degrees, even though I think there's still a stereotype that it's a waste of money, which I do not support that. I think liberal studies have a more fluid opportunity in the workplace. And I think the skills that I've learned, through those subjects and through my time as a student make me more valuable to the job market, because I can fit in so many places rather than just one degree with one title, one job slot. And if anyone in here has a degree from maybe long time ago and feels the same or feels differently, please feel free to speak up or throw it in the chat. I'd love to see a generational difference if your degree works for you now.
I thought I heard a microphone turn on for a moment. Wait, we do.
I was just waiting, Brian, because I thought you might be ready to say something. I don't want to hog anything. I will tell you, Kat, I started out pre-med. I switched to an art major. I went to a liberal school. It was highly competitive. I looked at a lot of different things. I think one of the things we forget to tell people is that in a lot of ways, the broader your knowledge, a lot of times undergraduate is a way to explore. I think there are some students who go directly into a pathway and they are 100% certain that this is what they want to do, and they go through that, okay? I think there are others like myself who I can tell you, even in undergrad, I was not only trying to do everything that I did in high school, from sports to theater to art to my high-end sciences, and realizing within that first semester, you had to focus and prioritize, and that everything is about choices. I would say undergraduate for me was learning how to make choices, okay? The other thing that I also talk to students when I'm teaching is I try to teach them that classes aren't just about learning the information and giving it back. Some of the things I try to institute and invest in them is because life changes, technology changes. I've lived through multiple technologies, okay? What makes you good and what makes you, and I will also tell you that even when I got out of undergrad, there weren't exactly positions per se. And I was told that I would not make a living in art. And I said, you don't know who I am. I also believe that my job does not dictate what my interests are. Okay. And so everything I've ever done is not 100% job related. Okay. I always make sure my other outside interests are fulfilled. So never assume that your job, when somebody asks you, oh, what do you do, defines who you are. What should be defining you is what's between your ears, what do you want to pursue, and as long as you are moving toward that goal, then to me, that's a success. Yes, you need to financially make an income. Yes, you do. You want to pay the bills. You want food on the table. You want a roof over your head. I think what has happened in our world is we have said that to be successful, if you are not making this level by this time, you are not a success. I completely disagree. My belief is no matter what level, and there are times I've made less than $8,000, but you figure out a way. And as long as you are moving toward your goal, you get there. Okay. So what I want people to think about, and there are people that we can even look back at long term, there are people, go and look at the stories of the instructors that taught high school, put money away, and when they retired, they ended up setting up because they were thinking long term. Their goal was to have a foundation for somebody else to learn, and they had put away $1 million and donated that. So what I'm saying, it's never about how much the money is. Think about the mothers who were single parent mothers who worked multiple jobs to put their child to school. That was their goal. Their goal was to make their life, to make it better for their children. So there are sacrifices in life. What I feel we don't teach now is resilience. There is a thing called there's called work-life balance. What I've always said is balance is never 100%, whether you're in a relationship, whether you're in work, whether you're in play. But as long as it all comes out eventually to equilibrium, there's days you're going to be working a lot and maybe fun isn't so great. But then sometimes with work, you have more time and you go and you have fun that helps offset those. You figure out that and you modulate. Okay. And I think you're talking, and I think that's exactly what you're talking about, Kat. You guys are literally talking in a much more healthy way than some of the past generations were. And I think that's the positive.
Thank you. I do want to make sure that we see the results of what everyone voted, but I do want to come back, Deb, to your point of current students not having resilience. I have a very different opinion, but I do want to see the results on it. Oh, wow.
Here are the results, and feel free, everyone vote. I think we saw we had 50. How many people do we have watching right now? I think I saw 52. So
61.
how many?
61.
Oh my gosh, thank you everyone for being here. Huge thank you. So it does lean towards workplace stability, and I think that's actually what we see in our results here. We gave the students more of a how do you lean on this? We'll go back to the slideshow here. So we were about 60-40 workplace stability. And actually, I made a mistake right here. Based on career workforce stability does have a little bit more of a mostly agree, somewhat agree. And there is a little higher of a peak here. So it is almost 50-50. Oops, I disappeared myself. And usually I'm on the screen with my slides. But with that in mind, I was going to make one more comment that maybe resonates with people like myself who've been in the workforce a long time. You can never make enough money. And what I mean by that is if you don't learn to be happy with the money you have and enjoy the things you enjoy, you're never going to make enough money. And the best joys I get in life are a lazy weekend with my wife watching Stranger Things, and that doesn't cost a lot of money. So you have to learn, and I think a lot of people know that, or maybe you start to realize that after you realize, hey, this $100 meal I had at a restaurant really didn't fill that void, but then a weekend enjoying and hanging out with someone you want to hang out with does fill that void. I'll throw it back to the panel for their thoughts, and we do have more questions. But here's the results of the survey. Back to the panel.
I do want to go back, Deb. I think you had mentioned that maybe students these days need to relearn or are not familiar with resilience. And I'm going to be very blatant. I disagree. I think our students and these Gen Z as a whole and upcoming Gen Alpha, they have sustained so much that I think a lot of people maybe look over because they experience that as well as adults. But to experience some of these larger life events as you're growing up, and with the growth of social media and with the growth of 24/7 constant ongoing news reporting and disaster sharing and just I mean, the best things and the worst things that you can see are available to you all the time. And I think this is going to tie into Carrie's question in the chat about students having trouble with critical thinking. I think students are exhausted. I think they are burnt out because in the classroom, um, they choose to come to college. I know there's an expectation, but they ultimately make that choice to show up to the classroom, turn in their work, participate with their colleagues and their fellow classmates every single day. They do make that choice. But I also think that there is such a high expectation to constantly be analyzing and assessing the the overwhelming amount of information that is provided, expected, and available to us at all times. We are constantly having to assess where our news is coming from, if it's trustworthy, the different factors and stressors in our life, on top of trying to critically think about things in class that may not feel um, particularly important. I know that's hard to hear, and I know teachers and instructors try and make their class very enticing and exciting and relevant to the material. Um, but students do have to weigh, is is this worth my time, or would I be better off using that mental energy outside of the classroom, for things that truly impact my life? And so that's my sort of devil's advocate, where I can see that students are tired because it never stops for them. They wake up, the phone's in the face, and you've got news, you've got emails, you've got text messages, you've missed calls, things are going on in your social life, things are going on with your family, politically. It's an onslaught of information. And I think that's where this now shows up in higher education. Um, and instructors unfortunately see the negative side effects of that.
Thank you so much. We'll go on to the next stressors right here. And this is from the survey. The number one stressors are grades, and we do break it down a little bit, but you can see there's kind of a top five here. So you've got balance, work, financial, and just general stress is a huge stress. Like, what stresses you? Stress. And the other ones kind of go to like a third tier of life, time and housing, social, everything. Everything is stressful. But I'll let Jada start us out here on, as a student, where do your stresses come from, and maybe how can we help?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like my answers would definitely vary. I wouldn't say like grades would be my number one stress. Thinking about my time in undergrad, it was really hard balancing my academics with all of my extracurriculars because I've realized I have friends who just focus on their school and that was it. They might have went to football games and classes, but now I see them in the real world and it's like they're having trouble finding a job. So I feel like it's very important to have a balance in school and building your resume outside of just your GPA because they're going to employers are going to want to know that you have experience in things outside of academics. So I would say in undergrad my biggest concern or biggest stressor was balance. Now in grad school, it's financial. I'm a graduate assistant right now, so it's like I'm on a stipend and trying to make that work for my life is very difficult. So yeah, but that's how I feel about that.
I can go. My undergraduate experience was completely different. I sort of bumbled around for the first 2 years, and I kind of went back and forth between what my parents wanted me to do and what my true passion was. Thankfully, I followed my heart. Um, but I knew that I needed stability on the outside, so I did a double major, both in English. So I did two concentrations. Um, and I also worked full time. I worked in the retail industry, go West Town Mall. So my social life was working, and I think that gave me some great insight to the community, but I didn't have the opportunity to have those on-campus experiences, because I was taking 18 hours for my last 2 years every single semester, and I was working 40 hours a week. And I think that's the reality for a lot of students who don't have the backing from a great support system. And I feel sad because I think of all the things I wish I could have done or would have loved to do in my undergrad. And so I'm trying to make up for all of that now in my graduate career, and I'm definitely feeling the struggle of that balance. Um, but I do think that Jada's right, where just because you have the degree and your grades are great doesn't mean you get the job. You need to know how to communicate with people and connect, and whether that comes from school-based extracurriculars or whether that comes from the job you're working outside the classes, um, how you relate to people is extremely important.
Yeah, I was just gonna add on that I do have like, or in undergrad and still now, I do have like relatively like support from my parents. Not saying they're helping me with like every single cost, but I still had to like, I was a server during undergrad as well. And I truly don't know how I balance all of that because at the end of the day, like, my parents are like, okay, well, you can do all of this, but school is still your main priority. So trying to make that a priority with like all of the other responsibilities can definitely like be a lot for someone that was 2019 at that age.
And I have a quick question from the audience from Deborah. And so you can answer currently and past. Do you feel your current self is GPA driven or goal driven? And I know, or past. Jada starts off GPA or goal driven?
I feel like I'm more goal driven. My parents never put a lot of pressure on me to like make A's all the time. It was just it was expected, like, it C's if I got, like, 1 C, my parents would be like, "Okay, like, what's this about?" But it wouldn't be like, "Oh my gosh, you got a C." So I didn't have, like, super strict parents when it came to grades, and I feel like that I know a lot of students may have that, so I feel like that definitely plays a part in, like, how your parents enforce that. So I just, like, was expected to do decent and, like, as long as I wasn't, like, failing, my parents were fine. So I'm definitely more goal driven. I do have, like, goals for myself that I want to reach, whether that's with school, personal life, or just, like, extracurriculars and things like that. I do feel like in high school, I was more GPA driven so that I could get in a university that I wanted to, and then it's like once I got that, I was like, "Okay, as long as I sustain, like, a 3.0, then I'm fine."
I want to say for both my undergrad and my graduate, I am goal driven. In my undergraduate, as long as I made a B, I was okay. And to be honest, for any Gen Zers, anybody on the workforce looking for a job, my GPA has never mattered. Never once have I been asked, what's this 3.45 about? Never has it ever been a topic of discussion. And I have a really great GPA as a graduate student. I think that just comes with my interest in the in the work I'm doing and in what I'm learning. But never have I set out for a specific grade. I am more interested in the material, but I can admit that for some reason in the undergraduate years, there was this sort of mob mentality is not the right phrase, but there was this sort of doom cloud that grades do matter so much when in long term, giving up studying on that one exam or giving up that little bit of time that you were going to dedicate to make something extra special, it it didn't matter in the end. And I wish I could go back and tell my younger self that prioritize making college an experience. And I spent a lot of time in Hodges Library, very beautiful place, but I kind of locked myself away there. And I wonder why I did that looking back, because the result was the same for me.
And I just want to share very quickly, great professor emeritus here at UT, Dr. Ron Forrest. I hope he's doing well. I haven't, but really amazing professor in geography. I'd seen him around campus. I took his class 20 years ago now, and world geography. And when I took his class, I'd see him around campus. I'd say hi to him. And he goes, "Oh, you do you teach here now and all that stuff." I'm like, "Yeah, I teach here," because he'd see me around, 5, 6 years later. And I said, and he's like, "I remember you in class." And I go, "I made like a C plus in your course." And he goes, "You don't always remember the A students. You remember the students who create this impression." And I would talk to him after class. So I hope more students realize that, like, you don't have to be an A student to get a lot out of a class. I mean, it's not bad to make good grades, but yeah. And we have another poll coming up right here. So jump into this poll. Stereotypes. This is an open-ended question where you get to give your stereotypes of those Gen Z students. I need like my voiceover for this right here. Like, welcome to stereotyping Gen Z students. Be kind. Uh, we've talked a little bit about this, so and I think in the interest we go till 1 p.m. Is that correct? Is that
Yes.
oh good? And we'll go. I'm going to hand over to Kat and Jada here in a second, but this is one of the polls I've been mentioning here, and this goes to how they perceive higher education. And what this graphic does, they always say make a graphic people can understand in 5 seconds. This is maybe a 6, 7 second graphic, but what you have here is the addition of the more positive views of education on the right side of the scale and the more negative views on the left side of the scales. And this is where I do wonder if there's an age factor here, because we're not pulling millennials when they went to college. We're pulling millennials who are in college now and Gen Xers. Sample sizes are also a little small for Gen X and millennials. I think we had around 20 Gen X's and 70 or so millennials. The vast majority of this survey is Gen Z. But I do see some differences. Gen Z has the best, strongly agree that it's most accessible. So when you look at what Gen Z thinks as an aggregate of the current generations that exist now, they find higher education to be the most accessible, but the lurking variable might be age. But I'm gonna hand over to Kat and Jada to talk a little bit more about how did you perceive education when you walked into it, when you were trying to get into UT?
I definitely think UT is changing now from when I was admitted, which wasn't even that long ago, but I was admitted in 2021. And I remember when I applied, UT was my safe school. Like one of the schools that was like, oh yeah, I'll get in, like I'm just gonna apply. So I know like I have a safe option. Now the acceptance is like pretty hard. Like you have to have like a really high GPA. Not saying my GPA was bad. It was like a 3.6 coming out of high school, but like now with that and like my ACT score, I'm not sure if I would be admitted. Um, so I do feel like that has changed in some way, as it relates to this particular university. Um, so I don't know. I'm not sure if I would say it's like super accessible. Although I feel like well on here it says a lot of Gen Z feels like it is. I guess it kind of depends on like your background and those high school stats.
Yeah. So Jada and I kind of lined up perfectly as far as college timelines. So I started 2017 and graduated 2021. So I was in a very interesting 4-year time span where I started pre-COVID, experienced COVID, and then graduated after COVID, but still with all the 6 feet parameters. I graduated in Nealon, where I was 6 feet apart from every single person at my graduation. So the cap throw was very embarrassing. Um, but I do think that the admissions requirements is extremely, extremely different. I worked in undergraduate admissions for about a year, year and a half before my current position. And to watch, to see the difference between, again, like my ACT score and my GPA, where I also applied to UTK as a safe school. I thought this is the state school that everyone applies to. I had hoped to go out of state. Um, but I chose to stay in state for just 1 year to make my family happy, and then I never left, just because I had such a great time. but to know what students are going up against and how great some of these student applicants are and they still get denied is mind-boggling to me. So I think while some of the younger staff members and younger students are working to make university experience more accessible on the inside, I think the non-accessible part right now is getting into those universities and communities.
And I think what's so interesting on this, if you do notice, the only strongly disagrees we got in the survey were Gen Z. So they might be the most dichotomous, where they do have a strong, like, I feel like education is accessible, but also there are those who feel like it's completely inaccessible and they go here. So we have the most connected and the most disconnected. So a stereotype doesn't even work. So they are the most dichotomous of the two. With the strongly disagree, I would say there's a group we need to be speaking out to. And I believe this recording will be shared. Thank you for everyone who's been here. I think Igor and can help out with that. And thank you to Digital Learning. And let's jump over to academics. There were some questions earlier. And the last one, I might do a word cloud of what everyone said. You'll get the responses to your stereotypes later on. So here we are with our next 4 out of 5 QR codes for you to scan. Please share your thoughts. I'd love it if we got 60 out of 60 thoughts right here. How do you think Gen Z students want to be taught in higher education? And I'm going to hand over to Jada and Kat, whichever one wants to start first. What resonates with you with the way educators are teaching these days? What works, what doesn't?
I think I'm going to go back to my long spiel earlier that Gen Z grew up with technology, and so we're now at a point where technology isn't a choice. I couldn't leave the house without my phone. I have to do the duo, double, whatever clarification that I am who I say I am. And the world is not built in a way anymore where you can exist outside of technology. And so I think understanding that students may want that. That may be the change that they need because they are staring at a screen, whether small or medium. Your computer's a medium screen, TV's a big screen. And so Gen Zers, I want to say, have found the differences that if they're tired of the small screen, they'll go to the big screen. And I think they just need a change, and technology, no matter what format you put it in, is still technology. You're still staring at a screen. And so students need innovation. I know this is provided by Digital Learning, and they are doing amazing, amazing work to make sure that students feel those efforts across all disciplines. But I think at the end of the day, um, essays and description or discussion posts and emails going back and forth is not the most effective way to keep the attention or sustain interest in a subject.
Yeah, I definitely not hard copy in books. I do feel like most professors are shying away from that though. I feel like the only classes where I might have had to actually buy a like physical textbook is like my Spanish courses, which I feel like is understandable. And I didn't mind, but I feel like interactive modules is like the best way to go. For I think every student is different and depends on which way they prefer to learn. But because I'm just thinking of like, I know friends who wouldn't mind watching online videos because maybe they're like into YouTube and things like that, stuff like that. So I think I would lean toward interactive modules because it helps me actually apply what I'm learning.
And I think, and Jada, you just said it from what the survey says, that interactive modules are what students want these days. A lot of students still love hard textbooks. I have students, hey, Brian, Stats 1's great, but can I get that physical textbook?
That's
So there
me.
is, of course, good. There's
Yeah.
definitely variation. But if you look towards teaching towards a trend, and I know we as educators, my personal opinion, shouts to Digital Learning. I think use their resources. If you're in Haslam, we have TE, Technology Enhanced Education. There are so many resources around UT to help you create these things. And creating this experiential learning. doing learning more than just reading a book. And this was by far over 75% of students said, I want an interactive thing where I can learn on my own time. That's why I think of an interactive module. And I think the hardest part for us as educators is creating something good. I think they're still here. You talk about creating the most. Lee Murphy, giving shout out to Lee Murphy, has created some of the most interactive, amazing, high quality production modules and learning we have here at the University of Tennessee. So if you want a gold standard of education, Murphy has showed us the gold standard. So I think we should all strive for that and then translate it into how it works into our discipline, our major, and we create this environment for our students, which is always a different thing. It's going to translate a little bit differently. If anyone else has thoughts, feel free to share them.
I actually want to touch on Robert asked a question earlier, and then thank goodness he brought it back because the chat's moving. But asked about what homework looks like as far as engaging the students and having a meaningful classroom experience. As a fully online and asynchronous student in a graduate program, I think there is this level of coldness and detachment to some homework assignments. I think discussion posts at one point, it was fun because you felt like there was a genuineness behind what you could say, but now it's turned into hi name, comma, I really love what you did here. And it feels very performative, even at the graduate level, even as a higher education professional. It feels very detached from the reality of what we're learning or the reality of what we have interest in that that we were not allowed to include in our discussion post because it didn't fall on topic. And so I think, especially in my professional role, we are working to get students actively engaged through classroom material, but also connecting with their community members. And so if that's going out into the area that they are in, whether they're a distance education student or whether they're based in Knoxville, they need to go out. They need to leave the chair, they need to leave the screen, and they need to go make experiences for themselves, because I think for older generations, that's what college was this time of exploration. And students are not getting that anymore. It's not a requirement anymore. And I think getting students physically and mentally actively engaged in the material is going to take more than discussion prompts or classmate feedback, because it does get monotonous at a certain point when you're doing that across the board in every discipline.
Yeah, I
We do.
totally agree with you. I like I said, did some of the earliest interactive stuff, and I'm 100% with you there, Kat. When I did the original syllabus for the intro to GameCraft under KEX, one of the things I kept saying is we need to be seeing people working in teams. And everybody kept saying, can't we do this all online? And this is where I'm coming back around to, Kat, is the fact that I would listen to my students, all these things that you're talking about, housing and security. It really upset me when I'm realizing that I have really bright students in my class, but if they can't have a place that feels secure for sleeping, sleeping is important. If there isn't a place for them, I have send stuff up the food chain regards, because I've sat on a lot of different committees over the years, and I've set things up the food chain regarding this. We have over the vet school where we've literally created a food pantry for our students and graduates. We try to put it in a very safe place so it isn't out in high profile. But you are 100% right. We are talking about the overall care of our students. The other thing I noticed was that my class of and I had 21 students, and I wanted them to be doing collaborative. We did a lot of work interactive on whiteboards so they could see their progressions. I did that again today when we were doing an ABLES class at the vet school. You can do this anywhere. I think you have to have some online, because it provides some rubrics so the students and the faculty know what they're doing. At the same time, I'm 100% with you, Kat, where I believe you've got to have that in-person experience so you have a much more fluid and dynamic dialogue. And I think that's what you're talking about. I think that is where we need the blend. And I think we're still trying to sort out what is that happy medium so you can have a better work-life balance, so you can explore those things. I think you're hitting 100%. And one of the things we brought up in the question we're still talking about is COVID still affecting us in both learning and social interaction? And I think that's what and I would love to hear from other people and see what they say.
I just wanted to make a quick comment. I just finished up a doctoral study on faculty-student rapport and care in the classroom related to Gen Z and what their thoughts were. And I know we're running out of time, but I'd love to hear Jada and Kat just speak to that, because my research, it was a qualitative study, indicated that students want to feel valued. They want their faculty members to know who they are, know their names if possible, and they want to feel like they have a contributing role to the classroom. So they don't want to feel like they're just being taught at, but they want to feel, and that kind of speaks to that collaborative conversation we're also having. And so I think that, sometimes we've got challenges with like the direction that we're trying to help students learn, but I think some of it is, I'm guessing, relational, but I'd love to hear from the panel.
I want to throw one thing really quick, because what you said right there, I teach an online class, and I found that students really like it. And Jada and Kat, I want to hand over to you with this. When I'm in the online class, I'm like, Jada, great work, and you're saying a comment in the chat. Like they like shout outs and stuff, like, or like, Kat, good work right there. Like, they like it when I shout them out. I've noticed that. Just saying the name, they feel this connection to me. Just, and it's so easy in an online class to say names. And also, they don't want to be on camera in online classes. I know that they really don't want to be on a camera, even though we're all on cameras now. But Jada and Kat, final thoughts here. Go ahead.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I realized that the classes where I felt valued were the ones where like my professor like knew my name, because then I was like, okay, well, she knows me. Like I can't skip class because she's gonna be like, oh, she's not there. Like, you know what I'm saying? So I definitely felt more, and I enjoyed classes where I felt like I had a connection to my instructor. One of my sports management class was like Hunter Porter, and she was like super one of my professors, sorry, for my undergrad class was Hunter Porter, and I remember her because she was so relatable. It was a very like relaxed class in terms of like we would just have discussions about whatever we were talking about, and she made an effort to know everyone's name. And I do feel like that goes a long way.
Yes, I will say, coming from the undergraduate English background, having that small community as the classes got more intensive, but my workshops got smaller, understanding my classmates, and having those connections with my instructors, and not just I went to their office hours and I spoke to them after class, but they spoke to us as human beings, where they said, I understand life comes in the way. Um, Please reach out and talk to me if you have something going on, if you have worries in the classroom and outside of it. They didn't treat us as like you said, Kathy, where they were teaching at us. I never felt that in my upper level classes. I really felt like I was valued for my new and fresh insight. And I think that's what higher education should be, where it's this learning partnership where the instructor takes away something from new perspective of students, but students also take away something from the material that they're prompted to review or study.
And we'll quickly go over here. I'm going to hide the Zoom thing was in the way. And I think we were on question 4 with, oh, wait. I tell you what, in the interest of time, we'll continue on
I do want
slideshows.
to share the
Go ahead.
screen that discussed students and their interest with collaboration with their professors and instructors. Did we have that?
Which I don't know if I included that on here.
So that was one of our questions on the survey. And so if interested, when this recording is done, and we can upload the slide deck and we can upload maybe the survey responses as well. But we did ask
Definitely.
students, how important do you think it is to have a connection with your instructor, and all of them said, we're interested in that, but I think there's maybe a glass wall or a little bit of unattainable nature to that, especially in such larger classes for these undergraduate students.
Definitely, definitely. And we were asked if we could spend another 5-10 minutes, I believe. Jada and Kat, are you okay with that?
I'm here.
Awesome. I am too. And so, classroom preference right here, there was mentioned like, how do you like to learn? And you can share your thoughts right now with you, how you think students want to learn. And go ahead and scan the QR code. But I'll hand over to Jada first and then Kat. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mentioned it when I was responding to a comment, but I really enjoy making or like taking what I'm learning that week or the homework that was assigned that week, and then our professors will ask us to make a presentation about one of the topics or things like that. I guess this can relate to grad school because we're learning about theory, so like that may be a little bit different, but creating a presentation and then also linking making your own activity for the class to do because I feel like one that applies what you're learning, and then I feel like you understand better when you're teaching it to someone else, but then the activity gets everyone else in class engaged. So I guess I would be like creative projects, and I also really like group discussions. I've realized because I'm a yapper, so I just love to talk. And also I like to hear other people's opinions and thoughts about things like that as well.
I'm gonna go classic. I'm a competitive person. I love a Kahoot. You want me interested, you want me engaged, let me win some Kahoot. I may not know all the answers, I probably won't, but I am gonna give it my all because I think um I am from the generation where you earn the trophy, you earn the number one spot, and that's yours. And second and third don't they don't exist. So that's one way that I've felt professionally and as a student, that really captures the attention and the excitement, to be involved.
So it's so funny you mentioned Kahoots. I use those a lot. And you can now make an island on Kahoot when you play Kahoot for your class, like a class island.
Oh,
Has anyone seen the movie Superbad?
yes.
Yeah, so in Superbad, he gets his license has the name McLovin on it, and the class voted this semester we're calling our island McLovin Island after McLovin in Superbad, and that's the name of their island. So they crack up and they say that, and I think letting your class have some autonomy. I think we all know that as educators, letting them have a say, because then they create it. I think every semester you have to watch because education, as we've done it, I've been doing it for 15 years, gets a little repetitive, and if we're bored, they're bored. That's why I say if I'm bored in class, they're bored. So I have to be having fun experiencing it with them, and each class is its own experience. So find some way to make it fun and interesting. And from the survey, interactive games was actually the highest. So there we are with the interactive games, what students like right there. Group discussion, lectures. I think we do. The hardest thing is like this is asking students what they want, but I think creativity and innovation is one of the hardest things to teach that we really need to push more and getting students to think outside the box. So even though students don't want those creative projects, I'm still going to be doing them, but I'm still going to be doing Kahoots too. But yeah, definitely hearing what they thought on what works best for them. I think we're on to one of our last topics right here, effective methods of teaching. Scan the QR code and share your thoughts on what is the best way to assess your students. So, Kat, we'll start with you this time. When it came to being assessed, how did you like to be assessed as a student? How did you not like to be assessed?
I think the simplest way was multiple choice. If I came down to it and I was looking for fully grade motivation, I'm going multiple choice every time. There's what, 25% chance of variability, in like a four choice question. I think again, I just from my, I know I'm young, but from my many years of experience, the discussion board post needs a little bit of a revamp. Even at the adult level with learners who have been in higher education and have been in education or they're brand new to it, they definitely are all following the same model of this detached template in a discussion post, and they do what they're supposed to for for the class prompt, but when it comes to engaging with other students, everyone is following the same pattern. And I do wish not I do wish there was sort of a no holds bar on discussion posts. I do wish that people spoke their true feelings, or felt comfortable to do so. And I think that you have to do that in creating a community in the classroom first, which is something I'm really working on addressing, for online students, because that is much harder. Um, but I think effectively multiple choice tests are probably going to win out. That's what I would pick if I was thinking most effective.
Yeah, I feel like I'm gonna start with what I don't feel like is the most effective. Um, I will say as it relates to undergrad, group projects are not effective just because everyone is giving a different amount of effort and it's not fair to those who are like putting in more work, or whatnot. Now in grad school, I realize that's different because everyone has it's more specific classes, everyone's like interested in a way. And then discussion board questions, just because we've like lost the plot with those, like it's not what it's supposed to be. I get what it's supposed to be and how it's supposed to go, but it's not that way anymore. I personally really love essays. I know that's not a common um preferred method. And then presentations, like I mentioned, are always my favorite. And then I think multiple choice tests are a happy medium.
Thank you so much. And we do have the responses. And JD, you're right. Essays is not the common one, but that's totally all right. I wish we could do oral examinations of the mind for each student to just sit down and ask them questions in a way of what do you know and what do you understand? What did you learn from this course? Of course, time constraints. So we do run into one of the best choices in education is often multiple choice questions, group projects. I was shocked to see as high as it was. You see some head shakes there, but group projects is technically second, but multiple choice is by far the winner here. And this was a question where students could select what resonated across the board with them. And I think that's getting close to the wrap up here. And let's go to reflections from the co-hosts. Any final thoughts or big reflections from today, or your floor is yours?
I'll go. So first of all, thank you everyone for attending today. I do want to say that this whole brown bag came to life when I attended a brown bag back in March of this year, and it had the title Gen Z, and I thought, perfect, I'm there. And there were no highlights of Gen Z voices, and there were no perspectives from Gen Z students. It was more so, how is Gen Z affecting other generations in the professional world? And so I had to be the little devil's advocate for the entire session, which I loved. But I reached out to digital learning and I said, please, 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 can we please highlight some student voices? And they said, you got it, you can lead it. So I hope if you stayed, or if that you're watching this recording, you take away that your students are interested. They are making a choice to be here, to pursue education, to come to class, to turn in their work. It may not be the best you've ever seen, but at a certain point, they are actively choosing to be a student. And I think that's really important as you reflect, how can you meet them halfway or give them some of that power back in the choices they make in the classroom.
Yeah. Kat really put it together nicely. Thank you all for being here. And I feel like this was a very productive and engaging like conversation. Um, shout out to Kat for her vision, and then she just reeled me in, and I was down to help however I could help. As a recent grad, of course, I still love Tennessee, go Vols, and was really interested in ways on how to give back to my university, and felt like this panel was like a great way to start. Um, but yeah, students are wanting to learn. We just need like our professors to meet us halfway. Similar to y'all, we are also adults, believe it or not. I have a hard time believing that as well. But we just have other things going on in life similar to y'all. It may not be kids yet or heavy bills, but there's a lot of stressors, and we just want to connect with our professors in a way that's outside of academics.
And last but not least, I'd like to say a huge thank you. One, Kat had us joining together, and Lindsay also was a big part of this. We've been meeting for what, 6 months now, 4 months, midsummer, right?
Yes.
So there's been a lot of planning that went into this and what the questions would be, what we wanted you to hear from Gen Z, and also getting the survey going to hear the thoughts of students and the thoughts of generations, not just Gen Z, but across multiple generations. And huge thank you to Jada, Vol graduate who is still giving back to the university, and Igor and everyone at Digital Learning.